this week we start out a little more nostalgic, or at least I'm nostalgic. I don't know about Aaron necessarily, his nostalgia with all this sort of stuff. He's young enough now, but he's still old enough. No, you're young enough where you still could have caught some of his stuff. Anyway,
Wouldn't that be old enough?
old enough, young enough? No, young enough.
Young enough to catch his stuff?
Yeah.
But
We'll try to inside a second here. We'll start off nostalgia, but I do believe that leads into something else in our conversation. There's a little more on the serious side of things, but in all seriousness, I guess you could say RIP JDF. Funny.
Wow, I can learn English. You were called a different name and blah, blah, blah. You're going to hell and I'm going to hell 6 times over because I got 6 tattoos. So do you want to do the intro, Mr. Josh Brewer?
What was my name?
Mr. Josh Brewer?
almost Johnson.
I was going to say, it sounded like he was going, Josh Johnson.
Yeah, no, it almost was Johnson Brewer. Go Power Rangers!
Good old, yes. I can't believe still I did that in that high. And especially on a day like today where my throat ends up being a little more sore than normal after doing a lot of talking in the last episode. And that's just what it is and how it ends up being at times. And that's okay. But anyways, so unless you're like an old fogey or like Aaron, apparently, when you're too young to even understand this, back in the day, and I say back in the day because, oh man, this was started maybe, I don't know, mid 90s, I guess. But you remember that old show that's still going on to this day, Power Rangers?
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Power Rangers?
Not really. No. But I remember McDonald's Power Ranger toys.
You remember Power Rangers? Okay, yeah. So it was started airing 2 years before you were born.
That's when it started?
Yeah, 93.
Wow.
So good old Power Rangers and all that fun stuff. But yeah, unless you're Aaron or you're much older. Sorry, Aaron's all of a sudden lost in something.
Those were the little things I collected from McDonald's from Power Rangers.
Oh, that's back when the Turbo movie, I think, came out. Let me see real quick. Let me see. It's sad that I know this. No, I'm completely wrong on which one that is. It says it's Lightspeed Rescue. I don't know that series.
Oh, okay.
That was when I was like already in, I don't know, end of high school, college, something like that. I don't know. So unless you're too old or too young like Aaron, you might not remember this person. But recently it was reported, and they have confirmed it with the news sources, Jason David Frank, and he actually did a lot of things besides just being in the Power Rangers series, but he committed suicide after a fight with his wife in a hotel room. So, you don't know exactly what happened. Only the wife is probably going to know exactly what the fights and the circumstances were up to it and all that.
Mhm.
And he was a professing Christian. He was an MMA fighter. I looked up his record. His record is 1-0-0, 1 win, 1 loss, 1 tie, or 1-0-0, 1 win, 0 losses, 0 ties. So I'm like, well, that's not exactly a glowing professional career, but it is a
Right.
professional career in and of itself. Where he at least went for it. He at least tried it, and he was successful in his fight that he did.
Yeah.
He at least went for it, like I said, and so I can't fault him for that. Now, beyond, his wonderful Power Rangers career, his MMA career, he also owns a bunch of, or I shouldn't say a bunch of, 2 karate schools. He's mastered multiple forms of martial arts. So, he lived a pretty successful career, left behind a couple kids and that, and did all that fun stuff. And I just found it nostalgic in a way because so 93. So remember, I would have been like 10, when that first came on. And I don't know. You said you watched Power Rangers, so you're kind of familiar with the format, right?
I mean, ish. I mean, I saw it on TV a couple times. Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's always the whatever, young adults, teenagers that have the morphers, morph, blah, 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 fight the evil, bring out the big old Zords, big old
Yeah.
robots, fight, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so he originally came on, and the way this guy, and he said he was only supposed to come on for like as a guest star for like 14 episodes and then be done with. But he proved to be so popular that they brought him back, and he kept coming back through the entire series run of the show, like
Oh wow.
over multiple times. So like he was only supposed to be there 14 episodes, and then they're like, nope, we're going to bring you back. But they had a problem when they went to bring him back. So I don't know if you're aware of like how Power Rangers even started, sort of
Oh
thing.
no.
It started as a TV show from Japan in
Okay.
1975.
Huh.
So what they did is they took TV footage from the Japanese show and they dubbed English over it. So all the fighting scenes that you saw in Power Rangers, those were all the Japanese show. They had their own storyline, their own whatever, their own craziness happening, and it was all just dubbed over in English. And I completely forgot where exactly I was, so I apologize. We have dog issues, and trying to
Too
record around dogs
Many.
can be sometimes interesting. But back to the history. So another dog incident, so apologies.
You're going into the history.
Yep. So the history of the Power Rangers. So it started off again as a show in 1975 over in Japan called Himitsu Sentai Gorengir. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it.
Whoa, you better be.
So essentially it was, all the fight scenes in Power Rangers, because you said a couple, right?
Mhm.
So all the fight scenes were the Japanese show. All the scenes with the people outside the suits, that was filmed in America.
Oh, okay.
And they basically just spliced it over each other. And then they just, added the new American voice actors over the voices of, the original stuff. So
Yeah.
all original story, so they literally, they bought the footage from the Japanese show and used it. Well, that presented a problem when they brought in Jason David Franks, because they brought him in for 14 episodes. They had Green Ranger stuff for 14 episodes only that Japan had made.
Oh.
So then they were like, well, we want to bring him back, but we can't bring him back as that because, well, we have no more fight footage with him on that.
Yeah.
So, they changed the story around. They're like, oh, okay, we're moving to this. They're going to bring in this White Ranger, blah, blah, blah. We'll make him that. So, regardless to say, what you saw in America with all that, it was interesting to read and look through the history of it, where it was basically a TV show that's been going on since the 70s that they just adapted to work in American audiences in that. And it started because Marvel actually created a deal with the company that makes the TV show over in Japan, where they could cross license and use each other's IP material.
Oh.
So I don't know if you ever saw it, but I know I think my brother had it when we were younger. Spider-Man with like a giant mech suit.
Oh, I don't know. It's got to be one of the suits from in playing games. It's probably a version of a suit you can get.
Well, guess where that started from? That started from that Japanese deal. Japan made their own version of Spider-Man that got this giant mech suit, and Stan Lee liked it so much he brought it over,
took it over and
brought it to America, because they have again this cross licensing deal thing. And that's what led to them eventually doing this. Some TV executive was overseas. They saw this show playing in Japan
and loved it.
And they're like, hey, we can do something like that, in the United States. And when they originally brought it over, they're like, oh, it's just too goofy. You need to make it less goofy. And of course, then they made it just so corny that. But for kids, you don't care
It
when
doesn't matter.
You're like, oh, look, those teenagers are doing cool things. They're fighting monsters.
Sick.
Yeah. Oh, man. Like I said, watching when I was younger, nowadays I'd be like, wow, I can't believe that's still a thing. But hey, you know what? It's actually quite amazing. There are people who make their entire YouTube careers just on Power Rangers.
YouTube careers?
Yeah. Like I remember seeing a video at one point. There's a guy he called himself the Sixth Ranger. Yeah, I know. and he has a little character of him drawn up in the Green Ranger style with the Green Ranger suit. And that's how he does all his videos.
Nice.
But there are people that's their entire career because the series is still ongoing.
I suppose.
Not only with TV shows, but they also do comic book series now, which are separate from the TV shows.
Oh.
So all completely different video games, all that stuff. So they're still doing all that. I'm just going down a little nostalgia path because it's my own little nostalgia path.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Jason David Frank, he was the green, the white, the black, the red Ranger at different points in time. He came back for various specials and all that. And they do say he's probably one of the most loved of the Rangers out there. I don't know. I'm not a big Ranger fan. I just found it kind of sad that when he committed suicide, I was like, man, that was one of those from my childhood that all of a sudden just
boom
took his own life. That sucks. I found it interesting again because it's a kid's show, right? In Power Rangers, because he had like sleeve tattoos.
Okay.
Full on arm sleeves.
Oh.
But when he came back for the show, after he got his tattoos, they made him wear long sleeves in all the episodes. Yeah. Because it's like, yeah, you can't see that.
Can't be showing that stuff.
So any of his later ones, you'll see him. He'll always be wearing like flannels and all that, just because. Hey, guess what? That happens. But like I said, he was he was a MMA fighter. Like I said, he did that one. This is cringy. I get it. I'll show you the photo afterwards. So, what are you looking at?
Just Power Ranger stuff.
Oh, okay. He had, if you want to look here, Aaron, he had this whole side of his forearm, right? And he had 3 words it took the entire forearm on the side of the forearm. Jesus didn't tap. And instead of a T, it's a cross.
What?
Yeah, it was was like red at the bottom and faded up to yellow at the top of the words.
Didn't tap?
Yeah.
What does it even mean?
I believe that was like where he didn't give up. I'd have to look back on all that stuff.
I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I know exactly what that means.
Now do you get that? I was like,
yeah.
Like, how do you not know what's going on
here? Didn't tap. You didn't.
What do you think it meant?
I don't know. I was thinking of like a literal tap that you get drinks from. I'm like, what?
No, he.
Oh, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, like tap out. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So he had, and I think yes, his entire back was tattooed.
So wow.
So like one half is a tiger. And these are all traditional Japanese tattoos, which makes sense because of MMA and his style of doing all these things. But like one half is a tiger and the other half is like, what's it called? I forget what they're called, but like the samurai masks.
Okay.
Whatever those are called. So yeah. And you could tell that there were definitely a couple years apart, it looks like, just the color saturation. But
yeah.
Yeah, he also has the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles inked on his arms. Of course, he has the Green Ranger because that's how he started out his career and everything. And just a bunch of our Japanese tattoos all over his body. I think, on one hand, he has on the front of his hand. On one, he has a dragon, and one he has a tiger.
Nice.
So it's just like, all right, we got that. He definitely was inked up. I know for a while he had a clothing line as well that he did. And that's how he had the shirts that said Jesus didn't tap as well on part of his shirts and everything. If you try to find his website now, I think the website is completely
gone,
not working properly.
Yeah.
When I tried to get to it earlier, it was throwing SSL errors, meaning no one's been maintaining it for a while,
Okay.
which means, things have probably been probably weird for a while now
Mm.
with things. But that's what happens, whatever. Things happen, websites happen, because he had a clothing line for a while too, and all that other fun stuff. It's just like, wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Busy
Again,
guy.
yeah, he was a busy guy. And again,
Jeez.
teaching MMA. He was appearing at, Comic Cons and all that too, and doing all that stuff. I found a video. Obviously, I can't play it due to copyright restrictions.
Mhm.
But the Christian Broadcast Network of Europe, and they did an interview with him about his thing, and the title of the video is "Jesus is the Real Hero."
Hmm.
So that's what it is.
Hmm.
He invented his own style of mixed martial arts and everything. So it's just like, all right, he tried and he lived out there. He was 49 years old when he finally took his life. I believe 49. Yeah, 49.
Wow.
In amateur MMA, he had 4 wins total. So he actually had a better record in amateur MMA than professional MMA, but 0 losses as well. So I mean, he did what he did, and I knew from other things that he was an adamant, outspoken Christian about things, which makes it even doubly sad that he took his own life.
Mhm.
That being said, I also understand it, being there myself.
Well, yeah,
Obviously we don't know what's going on in his
right. I
head,
say,
what he was battling there,
mhm.
but from my own things, I
Yeah.
can understand that.
Yeah.
Where it's one of those things where on the outside, you're Jesus is the hero. Let's do everything. We and then on the inside, you're going, oh, yeah, I'm no, I don't want to live.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's it called? It's sad that that is our culture in America and in the church.
Yeah.
And
It,
go on.
no, I was gonna say it's probably definitely a lot more common than I think we probably even realize too. I always wonder, yeah, I don't know. I always wonder why it's like people are always, I mean, I guess, nervous to even some point talk about it or bring up, especially for their own selves, if something's going on. But I guess, in a sense, like I guess I've thankfully not bad, but sort of been there. Where especially, but at the same time, it's like you don't want to talk about it because like that's it, I guess it's just uncomfortable, but I feel like as Christians, we should be work to be okay with uncomfortable.
We should be. We should be a lot more familiar and more willing to dive into uncomfortability.
Yeah.
But then your humanist kind of takes over a little bit, and I've been guilty of this, and I'm sure wasn't the dog this time.
Nope.
And I'm sure you've been guilty of this, where I'll come up to you, or you'll come up to me, or whatever, vice versa, and go, "Hey, how are you doing?" And it's just like, "Oh, doing good." And on the
And
outside, you're like, "Yeah, I'm doing good." On the inside, if you've ever seen that meme, you're like a duck paddling feverishly to stay afloat in the water.
yeah.
And that's how it is a lot of times. And that's why I personally don't let you get away with, I don't know, or it's okay, or it's
Ooh.
good. I that's why I personally try to probe a little bit deeper in on those things, so you don't just go, "I'm okay," and then find out a week later, "No, I really wasn't okay. Things were actually going bad for me." Because those are the worst when you have to put on the facade and try to live like that.
So I always think of this meme.
Oh, the everything is fine meme.
Meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fine. I'm good. It's all right. Nope. Hmm.
Yeah, that meme too. And we do that a lot. We let other people believe we're fine because we believe, or okay, I'm going to say this. I believe at times, I'm not going to speak for you, Aaron. You can speak for yourself in a minute.
Oh.
I love how he's like all of a sudden like, "Oh, no."
I want to speak for myself.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that it is easier to sweep that under the rug and try to put up that facade. It's easier than trying to explain to someone else what's wrong because, at least in my case, sometimes you fear that the other person will be like, well, that's nothing. Just get over it.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, depending on what it is, I suppose.
It
I can. Yeah.
and that's the thing we gotta realize is and even when we have someone that maybe kind of says, "Hey, no, I'm not doing fine because of X, Y, or Z," and internally you may go, "There's that that's
That's
okay.
it.
That's it. Why is this causing an issue?" But you don't know what else is going on with them. You don't know what else is the stressors are in their life and everything else that's going on. And it may seem trivial to you, but to them, that was their breaking point. And we have to remember that. We have to be, especially as ones who say that we follow Christ, we have to be willing to lead with compassion and grace first. Because, and I know as we talked about this before, even like between me and you on things, unless you know the other person is truly genuinely cares, why would you even bring up stuff? If you can't trust, it goes back to the whole thing of if you can't trust a person with like the small things, why would you trust them with the big things? It even goes back to, Cooper's book about that sort of stuff. Like, hey, if I can trust you with this, I can trust you with everything else. And it's the same with interpersonal relationships as well. It's the same where if I can trust Aaron with X, I know I can trust him with Y, which means I can trust him with Z, which means all of a sudden the floodgates open when things go to heck. And then when things are going bad and Aaron goes, "Hey, how's it going?" I can be honest because I know the track history of how Aaron responds. Not that he has all the answers
Oh, heck no.
or whatever, but that he is at least compassionate enough to lend ear to listen. But at the same time, that also it means that when things go wrong, be it me or you, okay? And I'm
Mhm.
thinking of something particular recently, not like month recently. I'm talking a couple months recently.
I know what you're talking about. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
where things went wrong and things could have been hidden really easily. Never talked about, never brought up.
Until it had to be.
Yeah, until they had to be. But that could have easily happened. And
Yeah.
instead, it was immediately, "Hey, could you give me a call?"
Yeah. 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 Probably be good to talk about this right now.
Yeah. It wasn't like, "Oh, yeah, it was a good trip. Nothing happened."
Yeah. 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 It could have been.
It could have been, but that takes time to build that relationship up
True.
to where it gets to that point. That's not something you can expect right away. You cannot expect someone you just met a week or 2 ago to dump everything on you when you ask them, "Hey, how are you doing?" Those first few weeks, you're probably gonna get surface level answers.
Right. I always wonder, I hate when I say that now. That's gonna become my next newest hatest, most hated phrase.
Well, if you think about it, every new phrase is. Makes me wonder what your next one will be.
I've always wondered, No, you haven't always wondered.
Well, I've always wondered what your most hated phrase in all time is. If you think about it, it might not be that
You're
hard.
nailing all of them. Tired. But like when you come across the people that do like I don't know, I guess have you come across these people, but like where they just dump a ton of stuff on you right away without even hardly knowing them.
Mhm.
I've It's just what I guess in them makes it so easy for them to do that.
Well, there's probably a couple things. I'm not one of those people, so I can't speak for those people,
Mm.
but there's probably a couple things. One, they probably just trust and love people. Like they have
Hopefully.
no care in the world about what people think about them. they're probably confident enough to not care what people think about them as well.
That'd be the best case, I would think.
Or they're so naive that they think that, by telling you everything, it's gonna make everything better, and just be like, "I am always a ray of sunshine." So da 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 da. I don't know what it is, honestly, and there is some danger in that as well. I'm not saying, you meet a person on the street and they go, "Hey, how's it going?" That you immediately go,
Ah!
you reveal the deepest, darkest secrets of your soul to
My
them.
world's on fire.
Well, fire would be one nice way to put it at times. You don't do that.
No.
You have to build up that relationship. And again, I don't know that guy, Jason David Frank, personally or anything like that, but I would
Oh,
hope that
right.
if he was a professing Christian, he was hopefully going to church and that he had someone in his life that he could have reached out to or talked to. But I also understand at the same time that when you're in that deep hole of despair at that moment, you don't want to reach out.
Right. You'd just rather hang out by yourself and talk to no one.
Well, in his case, he talked to whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was, gun or drugs or whatever. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that happened. But what I was going to say is, when you're in that despair, you don't want to talk to anyone about anything. You just want to say, "Yep, I'm done. I don't want to have to deal with any more of this." Unfortunately, that was the case in this scenario. But at the same time, it makes me think, and I've seen this from other people that I know who are Christian. They go, "You can be all sunshines and rainbows on the outside, but deep inside, you're a black pit of despair."
Mm-hmm.
And we need to get beyond that surface level. Hey, how are you doing? Especially not for everyone, but for the people that we know, we trust, and we care about.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's also the reciprocal thing. When someone you trust, and you care about asks you how you're doing, you don't just give that surface level. Like I said, sometimes it's appropriate. Sometimes it is appropriate. You don't do that to a stranger on the street. But like,
Oh no, no,
yeah.
no. Yeah, the people Yeah, you need to hope you can get that
So like
honest feed.
so like when
Honest.
you send a message like, "Hey, how are you doing today?" I try to be honest,
Yeah.
and I have been in the past. There'll be days and streaks where I'm like, "Hey, good, good, good," and I'll be like, yeah, kind of screwed up something here, kind of messed up on something, and or yeah, I'm frustrated, didn't get enough sleep, blah blah blah." And it's a
Work.
balance, and it's a balancing act on doing that. But at the same time, I think it's important, especially because the world we're living in says, do whatever you want, however you want, because you're living your truth. And being a Christian, it's hard in this day and age to do that, to live properly.
Right. And well, yeah, everyone wants to live their best life, or at least what they think their best life is. But when they're living their best life, they're actually kind of destroying it, depending on what that is. I mean, it's easy to say this from a Christian perspective because
Hmm.
that's the way I am, or what I believe, and but it's like whenever, and it's not just is whenever you get off the beaten path and stuff and do something stupid, it's like you kind of find out why. Um, I guess you could say we're instructed or told not to do something.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, and you hear the argument, "Well, that's only because you believe that. Otherwise, it's not wrong at all." I'm like, okay, do that without the. I don't know. Like in my mind, like I can't help but think like if you do that, even without believing on what the Bible and what God has to say on things,
Hmm.
it's like, does it really make it any better? Like at some point, there's still some sort of issue this stuff causes, whether you know it now or later.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, you live your best life and do whatever the heck you want to do until it turns out not so much the best for you. I
I,
don't know.
There have been times when I've tried that myself, and it's just like, yep. At the end of the day, afterwards, after everything's said and done, I'm like, well, that sucked. That went poorly for
Yeah.
me. That went bad, and I and people will, and I've seen this personally, where people will try to do what they want, and then they'll try to convince them, no, this is okay. This is fine meme. That's what it is exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I get it when you say people who aren't Christians necessarily will say, well, how do you know it's wrong? And then I'm like, well, kind of being convicted of it, so that kind of helps me tell me it's wrong.
Right. Well, and I guess that and see that's another tough thing about I don't know with it all is for the whole feeling convicted. I mean, I'm assuming someone that isn't a Christian isn't going to feel convicted about something. At least in the moment of doing it. But could they I guess what happens if they have a feeling of conviction later?
Mhm.
Would they tie that back to that or not? I don't know. Because it's like, yeah, again, it's so easy to say that the only reason you feel convicted is because you were taught this growing up and all that kind of fun stuff.
And that's part of growing up in your faith as well, is reaffirming and reinforcing those beliefs over
Mhm.
time because and I know we have talked about this where it is easy to take whatever, when you're given as a kid and be like, well, this is my truth now, this is my whatever.
Mhm.
That's gonna crumble like a house of cards the first time something bad happens.
Mm.
Because it is easy to hold on to those platitudes when everything is going sunny side up and everything's good. And the moment you meet that first little bout of resistance, that's when what you believe is actually put on the line and put to the test.
Mhm.
Because do you stay with what you believe when, you know, pick a scenario that seems horrible? Do you stick with those beliefs when you could easily steal all the money there and no one would notice and you get away scot free clean and you just take a ton of money? Or do you still stick to everything when, let's say you get married and you have a kid who's dying of cancer?
Mm.
Do you stick to all of that when and pick a bad scenario?
Yeah.
And it's easy. It's easy to go, yeah, da 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 da. Great. And play make believe on those scenarios.
Mhm.
But when you get into the thick of it, when you get into actually living through scenarios, I'm thinking of a certain couple ones, not just one, I'm thinking of a couple. you know, at that point, that's what tests your metal. That's what tests, no, I didn't say metal, metal.
Oh,
Yes,
never mind.
I know. That's what tests you on what you're doing, when you're doing, and why you're doing. That's what reveals the you believe it because you were a young kid and told it, and you believe it now because that's what you believe. That's the
Mm.
difference between going, Lord, Lord, I served you, and Jesus going, come on in.
Mm.
If you don't, for those who listen, if you're not understanding what I'm referencing, there's a passage in the Bible where Jesus basically goes, "Yeah, you'll come to heaven and go, Lord, Lord, I served you. I did all this in your name, blah blah blah." And Jesus says, "Get out of here. I've, I've never known you. I don't know who you are." Essentially,
Yeah.
so that's what I mean.
That's
It's a difference between
frightening.
those two things.
Mhm.
Because one, you're doing it because that's what you believe you're supposed to do. That's what you're taught you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
The other one is you're doing it because that's what you believe.
Right.
And that seems minuscule in nature, but it is large in its implication.
Yeah. Mm. That's a terrifying verse. I think obviously, I mean, for the circumstances, it is like a very tough circumstance. But um, I don't know. I also think of like, what if things got so good for you that you can even fall away from what you believe too.
Mhm.
I suppose that's one reason I, whenever like the lottery was huge a
Oh, I
little
know.
while ago. That's been one though, right?
Yeah.
Was that split a couple ways? I don't know.
No, I think only one. I don't think it was split a
Jeez.
couple ways, this latest one.
Wow.
If I'm remembering
Yeah.
right. But
Either
yes.
way, some people got a ton of money. We always talk about that at work, like once it starts to get really high, like, oh, what are you gonna do with the lottery if you want it? Kind of thing. And I'm just like, you know what? Part of me hopes to never actually win the lottery.
They actually say those who win the lottery end up being in the poorhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. They get so excited about what they can get now and then just blow it all.
Well, not
and-
only that, you have, and they say if you win the lottery, first thing you need to do, don't tell anyone and hire a lawyer.
Mm,
Because what will happen is all of a sudden, everyone you know will come out of the dirt saying, "Hey, buddy."
yeah.
You know, in certain states, you have to reveal
Who
who it
won?
was that won. I saw one recently where I don't think it was for the Powerball, but it was for something else, where the person wore a costume to claim their lottery winnings. They were fulfilling the letter of the law, not the spirit, but they were allowed to get away with it, so no one would know who they were.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Because yeah, once you win the lottery, if that's well known, you're going to be hit up by charities, you're going to be hit up by politicians, you're going to be hit up by friends and family.
Oh,
Y-
for sure.
You know, it'd be like, hey,
Enemies.
buddy. Yep.
Is that why you need a lawyer is for the enemies or what?
Oh, no, you just need a lawyer to figure out how to do the winnings properly,
Oh,
but also how to protect the money as you're going through things.
okay. So I never figured you would need to
Because that's
earn
also
the winnings properly.
yeah, because there's also things you got to figure out what your tax liabilities and all
Oh,
that.
okay.
There's a lot of things that go into that, which is like they're like, yeah, first thing you do, get a lawyer. And also, they can hopefully protect your anonymity, so that way not everyone knows.
That's smart. I was just imagining also enemies coming up and be like, "Hey, you remember when you did this?" Or
Yeah, try to blackmail and all that
yeah,
fun stuff. So yeah, that's why I say get the lawyer, get it right away, and let them do all the fun paperwork for you, because then you don't have to worry about stuff.
but then they take your money.
Yeah, well, it's better than losing it to
It's
whatever.
true, I suppose.
But yes, I was yeah. Uh, like I said, the passing of JDF was a very grim reminder of that, as us in the church especially need to be mindful of that.
God. Oh, yeah, especially the church. Um,
And like I said, it's a two-way street on that regard. It requires trust on both sides.
oh, yes, I'm
in other
sorry.
words.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Gosh, yeah. Cuz I'm trying to think of like for a church. Oh, it makes me want to go into finding a good church. How transparent does a church be though?
I don't think the church as a whole,
Right.
okay,
Okay.
that this is where it's on that
This is
interpersonal level.
okay. Yeah.
This
yeah.
is not
This isn't
mandated on high from the pulpit, Aaron.
Yes.
You will be transparent with everyone who
Oh,
comes
no.
up to you and asks how you are. This is, hey, you have that relationship with me. You have that relationship with
Yeah.
Peter. You have that relationship with the Petersons. You have that relationship with put X, Y, or Z in. Whoever you want to put in that list, right?
Yeah.
If they ask you, hey, Aaron, how you doing? They'll, you can, if you have that trust, not to a trust, you can answer, right? But at the same time, it's their responsibility to be like, hey, something's off. Hey, Aaron, how
Mhm.
you doing?
Now, part of me thinks I should just be able to, be open with the church. And then obviously, depending on how some people act, you'll know
know
they
who-
need correction.
Well, you'll also know who you can trust a little bit more too. Because
Right. Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
okay, take for example, like I know this sounds horrible, but I promise you, it's not, no, it's just as bad as it sounds. There is some stuff my mom will never know
Yeah.
because I don't trust some of those things.
Her to know them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't, because I know how she will react.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have someone, you may trust them with a lot of stuff, but you're like, no, they're gonna react this way. You may want to stay clear of that
Mhm.
because it's going to cause more harm than good. On the flip side, here's what I have to say to those people.
Mhm.
People who go, let's say, uh, okay, for example, I'm not going to say what is my recent thing where, talk to you and Andy and that a
Mhm.
couple hours about that. If you guys had responded negatively, like
Oh gosh.
I would be disillusioned with the church a little bit more, be hurt,
Mhm.
c be very confused in what to do next
Oh, for
because that
sure.
kind of leaves me outcast and
Like
like orphaned on things, right?
mhm.
And so when you're the person that someone opens up to about something that is hurting them,
Mhm.
whether you think it is a big thing or not, the first thing you have to do, the first thing is you don't judge them. You don't sit there and go, I'm going to now pass judgment on you for this failure in your life or this perceived failure or this thing I don't agree with, but you are having struggle with or it is causing you pain. That is not the first thing you do. The first thing you do is you tell them, thank you for telling me that this is something that is, thank you for letting me know that this is something that's bothering you.
Mhm.
Because that's going to do two things. One, that's hopefully you're being sincere and that's going to convey that sincereness in that sentiment. The second thing is that's gonna relax the other person because I guarantee you they are probably nervous if they actually tell you what is wrong and what is going on. They may see cool as a cucumber on the outside, but inside they are paddling like that duck trying to stay afloat in the
Mhm.
water. And they may be like, I know this person, I trust this person, but it is going to be hurtful if that person they don't trust. Example, again, me, you know, and you and Andy and all that recently.
Mhm.
If you guys had been like, well, no, and just like flat out rejected me for whatever reason, that that could have been very hurtful. But how
Oh,
you guys
that's
responded, it was like, okay,
cool.
they all right. They're willing. I wouldn't say cool, but it's like all right.
Huh.
They're at least willing to acknowledge what's going on and
Yeah.
not necessarily be like, yes, you should do this, but be like, hey, how can we encourage you, sort of deal. And
Mhm.
that's what it came across, at least for me. When that scenario played out,
Mhm.
and that's what you need to do. You need to not be the one to be like, well, we got to now correct you. We now got to fix you.
Yeah, we
It's after you go, thank you for basically, essentially, thank you for, filling me in on what's going on. Be like, don't be like, immediately jump to, well, how can we fix it? Second thing you need to do is just let the other person talk, listen, be a sounding board for them. In the sounding board or a listening board, I'd say actually. Listen and let them, if they need a vent, if they need
Mhm.
to empty themselves and rant a little bit, let them do that for a little bit.
Hmm.
Why are you going, hmm?
No, that word triggered me.
Which word?
A rant.
Oh,
No, I remember hearing a message from a pastor, talking about how, like, ranting is actually not good for you. I was just like,
you know,
"Hmm,
but when you're hurt or you're dealing
interesting."
with something or you're
Right.
struggling with something, sometimes you just need to have that need to happen. I remember one time in particular, this was before I went to inpatient.
Mhm.
Andy took me to lunch at Potbelly
Mm.
in Racine. Why is that look in your face for?
Let's
Oh,
talk.
okay. And he, we had lunch. We didn't necessarily, how do I put this? He didn't try to fix what was going on. He basically let me talk. He let me rant about what was
Yeah.
going on. He knew something was up, and we had gone planned lunch because of that
Well,
something.
yeah.
And he basically just let me
Just talk.
say what
Well,
I needed to say, get
word
it out.
vomit.
Now it didn't fix anything, but it helped him know a little bit better on why things were like they were, on why things were. in my own eyes as bad as they were. Because objectively from the outside, probably everything was okay. But internally, my own head was completely messed up and screwed up over what was going on. Yay, chemical imbalances.
Yeah, right.
Woohoo. Do not wish on anyone. And sometimes you just need that. So thank you. First thing is again, acknowledge, the thank.
Yeah.
The second thing is just listen. Just be that sounding board. Just let them do whatever they need to do to listen or to, get the whatever it is. The third thing is at that point, don't be like, oh, fix time. Be like, hey,
Mhm.
and this sounds counterproductive at times, but be like, is there something not where you're bringing a solution, but where you're going, is there something I can do to help?
To help, right.
Where you're letting that other person kind of give you some ideas on maybe there's something that is a very simple thing that you can do to help, where it's simple to you, but maybe it's hard for them. And then sometimes those things are overly important. But the fourth thing you do then is, and I know that, and it's probably the hardest part, is even if you're not telling them you're doing something, see if there's ways you can help them or bless them in some way to maybe lighten that burden. And maybe it's nothing. Maybe it is just saying, "Hey, I'm going to check up with you
Yeah.
next week." Maybe it's going to be, "Hey, I'll give you a ride," or whatever. But each situation is going to be
Yeah.
different.
You can do little things
Yeah,
little
but
things can make a big difference.
that's your responsibility as the person. That gets when you ask the question, go, "Hey, what's going on?" And they go, "Well, if you really want to know."
That's
As the person that gets that asks the question, that's your responsibility. And realize
yeah.
that there's times when you may have no ability to help, where the most you can get to is you can be the person that helps listen and supports for
Mhm.
a little bit, and maybe you have to pass them on to another person for help.
Right.
Prime example, what you did by passing me on to Andy.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you took all the steps there.
Unknowingly.
I know you didn't know that, but you went through that process. You listened, you let me rant a little bit or just let me talk for a little bit. And then you I believe even on that call, you kind of asked like, "Hey, what can I do?" Whatever. And I was like, "Oh, whatever." But the last thing you did was then you said, "All right, this is beyond me, Andy."
Right.
And then Andy passed me off. And that's fine because not everyone is equipped to solve everything.
Right. And that's and as far as like the whole like trust and stuff goes, it's having that trust with so for me and you and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um uh Pretty much, well, I guess, it depends on the relationship, obviously, and the level of trust, but for me and you, it's like, if I tell you something, it's like, you can take whatever it is I've told you, and I was like, I'm cool with you choosing and to do what you do with the information that I give you, kinda thing. And, I mean, it goes to, like, obviously, for, like, Josh and Amy and Andy and Heather and stuff, it's like, when you tell one of them, you kinda expect the other to hear sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, it's
I have no spouse for me to hear what I
well,
say, so
no, there's that, but, like, it's just, like, I don't know, I trust pretty much, like, the core people being, like, you, Josh, Andy, and even Peter, um, Lucas. Maybe is that about it? Maybe that's about it, but, like, if I told any of you guys something,
uh-huh.
pretty much it's like, I'm okay with you sharing that with whoever you feel like is oh, good to be shared with, or kind of thing. It's just like at this point, at least for me personally, it's like I have, I guess, that level of confidence in all y'all folks, which pretty great thing.
Yeah.
I would say. It's great to have those kind of friendships and that level of trust with people, but also, I mean, to some point, I am a more. I don't know, some people say I'm a more unknowingly trusting person.
Eh,
Depends, but it's
it
like,
has its advantages and disadvantages.
yeah. Well, and that's where it's like sometimes I guess I can be like that, but then there's times it's like, sometimes I know better, but sometimes.
Hey, we all have those sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, what?
This is the church, man. He needs help.
Right? So I talked about, your responsibility if you're the one asking the question, because if you're asking the question and you're genuinely asking that question, be prepared for when someone actually gives you that information.
Yeah.
Now, if you're the one, what say it?
I say there's times where depending on who it is, I'll if they ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, well, as you have said, do you want the real answer or the short answer?
Oh, I've done that to people.
Yeah.
I've done that to people at work. I'm like, do you want the polite answer, or do you? And these aren't people like I have the best relationship with,
No,
but I
right.
have a more than a casual work relationship with. And I
Yeah.
go, do you want the polite answer or do you want the real answer? And it's about 50-50 so far on when people
Yeah.
choose the real and the polite answer.
Hmm.
And it's just like, yeah, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. So if you're the one asking the question and you're being earnest about it, you're not just trying to like strike up small talk, be
Yeah,
prepared for potentially something like that to happen. And when
something,
it does,
okay.
don't freak out. Okay. Now, if you're the one being asked of the question, this is where it gets a little more difficult because it is nervous as all get out sometimes to reveal that information. And if you're extremely nervous about revealing maybe some information, I would ask one of two things. A, is this the right person to reveal that to? Or are you just nervous because you're nervous about the situation in general? Because both options are valid. Both answers are valid there.
Yeah.
And maybe you're like, no, I trust this person implicitly, no issues, no questions, but the situation in itself, because it's personal or whatever, is difficult, is hard to do. It's hard to talk about. It's even for a couple things for me, as like I said, to even utter certain words were difficult, even though I trusted
Oh yeah.
like you explicitly. Like there's no issues there. It was just saying those words are difficult. And it was like, okay, why is it difficult? And I have to be able prepared to know that one too, right? But so know that it can be that hard concept to do, that hard thing where it may not be the easiest thing in the world. And then also realize, and this is the hard part, because you might already have someone who's freaking out about something, who's dealing with something, and the person goes, and you think and you trust them, right? And they go, "How you doing?" And you unload on them, and then the other person just kind of freaks out a little bit.
Yeah.
That may happen, and
Oh
that
yeah.
can happen.
Oh yeah.
And I want people to understand when that happens, they're not freaking out because of you. They're not thinking out because they
Like,
think you're a freak, a mutant, someone who has a unique issue that no one else in the world has. You are the ultimate sinner in the world. You are the one destined to hell amongst all the people in the world. You are the devil incarnate. It's not because of that. It's because it's not that usually. It's usually because the situation probably was a little bit more than they could handle and probably freaked them out. And you
well,
know
they just
what?
don't know what to do.
And yeah, exactly. They don't know what to do. And you know what? That's okay. Because at least from my perspective on this, and you can tell me if you have a different perspective on this at all. Typically, it's in those times, it's okay because then you two can figure it out together what the next steps are. If the person who asked the question and you tell them and they go, I and they may freak out for a minute. And obviously that's going to cause you to freak out if you're the one unloading.
Yeah. Like, what are they thinking? Oh no.
But know this, they love you. They care for you.
Hopefully.
Well, if you trust them enough to do this,
Yeah.
I hope that's the case, right?
Yeah.
They love you. They care for you. They want to see what's best for you. And they may not have an answer right now. They may freak out a little bit. They may be that duck trying to paddle and figure out something. And their mind is probably racing. like, I can't believe this person I care about just said this. What in the world is going on? My world
Yeah.
is turning upside down. I thought they were okay. I thought they da. And that's at least for me, in those couple of situations where I've had people, say stuff to me when I ask the question, and I go, okay, wasn't planning on this. There are times when my brain immediately goes to what the heck is going on? What?
Yeah.
Just,
Where'd
like the
this come
shock,
from?
confusion and all that. And it's then when I sit back and realize, again, hindsight is 2020, right? I never asked them before how they're doing and genuinely cared. It was one of those small talk conversation starters. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
How you doing?
Blah, blah, blah. Let me sip my soda or my coffee or my drink or whatever. Okay, bye. Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Instead it was, hey, how are you actually doing? And then all of a sudden, oh, all this. Yes, I don't know what to do. Give me a second to think. And that's okay. But it is hard as the one, dumping the information, be like,
For sure.
Aaron's freaking out. I don't know what to do. Oh, geez, Louise. He
He's
hates
probably
me, blah, blah,
thinking
blah.
all these things right now
Yeah.
about me. Oh no.
And I know it's hard to say this, but take a second, breathe, let the other person catch up to where you are at. Because as soon as they take a second to process mentally everything you probably just said and spilled on them, and the word vomit sentence that came out, they'll probably show that they care, not in the fact that they are going to know and try to fix you right away, but in the fact that they're going to be like, let's walk through this together.
Yeah.
And if you're the person who gets nervous like that, when you ask the question, hey, how are you doing? And, your buddy unloads on you, if you have to say, I don't know what to do right now, but let's do this together. Don't leave them hanging. They need to know that they are not alone. They need to know that someone physically, especially, even if they're a Christian, right?
Mhm.
They may go, God's always on your side. Go with God. That doesn't help.
Not all the time.
When you're in the middle of crisis, when you're in the middle of whatever, you need someone to come alongside you. And it may not literally like be side by side with you, like literally like that. But
Right.
metaphorically, you need someone to come alongside you and say, look, I don't know the answers necessarily, but let's find out
Mhm.
what to do. And if you don't know the answer, hand them off to someone that you both trust that you think may know the answer. Again, going back to what you did. You passed me off to Andy, Andy passed me off to Pastor.
Mhm.
It was like the chain of custody, and then he passed me off to the inpatient,
Yeah.
which is fine because he didn't know
Yeah.
what to do either, but he knew a different part of the chain to potentially get me
That would-
assistance,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's how it went. None of you knew the answer, and that was fine. You let me vomit some word salads, and then you moved me on and helped the chain, but you let me know that someone was walking alongside me through the process.
Mhm.
You didn't just say, okay, cool. Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Sign off.
I'm uncomfortable. Okay, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, exactly. Any agreements, disagreements, contrary points?
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
You're just like, yeah,
I
yeah. What?
No, yeah. Yeah. Don't know what else to say other than I agree.
Okay.
I guess, yeah. Gosh dang it. I hate saying, yeah. Yeah. But it's good to check in on people, I guess. And as you were saying, just to be more well, being more prepared for a different answer
Yeah.
than just yeah, I'm good. Doing
Yeah.
all right. Life's going well.
Yep. Because if you ask that question, be prepared for the unload. And especially check in on your friends and family, especially
Yeah.
during wintertime.
What do you mean? What's wrong with winter?
Yeah.
Does winter
Less
do?
sun, SAD going all around.
I don't know what you're talking about.
SAD, I don't know what's worse, SAD or STD.
Well, I was just asking, one's permanent, but no, they're both.
Both can be temporary, both can be permanent.
Yeah, this is very true.
Okay.
Um,
Both are right in there. But
Yeah.
as I said, I don't know which one's worse, SAD or STD. That's a very horrible phrase. By the way.
I think I'll go with SAD. I'd rather have SAD, I think. But that's me with not having an STD, so I don't know. I don't know.
I don't have experience with either
Yeah.
with STD either, but
that's good.
this is going to sound weird. If it was like a temporary one that I could take antibiotics with to be over within a week, then I'd rather have that
The
than SAD
STD.
or depression. To
I
be
suppose
completely honest,
if it could just be gone. But then if SAD can be temporary and just go away, then I don't care. I don't want any of them.
yeah,
They both suck.
that's a weird question. You know what? I'm going to ask Andy and Robin that on Wednesday. Would you rather have an SAD? Would you rather have SAD or an STD? And I'm going to be prepared for the looks of what? On their
Where did
face.
this come from?
Mm-hmm. The looks of what the? No.
Why?
Where? This is
But-
where, Andy. Sorry.
Yeah, just check on the friends and family and just hopefully monitor. Well, yeah, see how what they're doing. I guess be aware of. Hopefully, if you know them well enough, like if you notice something's off, definitely then be like,
Oh yeah, especially if you see things that are not normal.
Yeah. So it is a depressing time of the year,
Oh yeah.
unfortunately. But
Yeah, and I wonder what the speaker's going to look like for 2022, because this is a pretty depressing statistic for last year.
mhm.
Out of every 1,000 people, how many died of suicide?
Every 1,000,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say close to. I want to say 30.
No, go up.
Oh, wait, 1,000.
Out of 1,000.
I'm sorry. Why did I go to 300?
Oh, thankfully no.
Oh, okay.
72.2 people
Oh, okay.
out of 1,000, which is equal to 7.2%.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm probably confusing some other numbers
Yep.
in the head. Okay.
On average, every year, 7 million people attempt suicide worldwide.
Wow.
And they did say, with COVID, they expect the 2022 year to
To be
probably be
up.
worse and be
Yeah.
up. They were saying already in February of this year, it was up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, great. That's not good.
No.
In Wisconsin, we're definitely what you could say, colder, darker state than
Some.
other states because, well,
At least in the U.S.
yeah. Well, that's what I said, states.
Yeah.
Or lower
Yeah.
48, I should say,
Mhm.
because, well, we're one of the more northerner states, right? But yeah, deaths by suicide, was it last year? 866 just in Wisconsin. So it's not a thing where you're like, no, we don't have anyone, right? We have a lot. And adjusting for population and all that, right? You look at like Illinois, 1,362, Michigan, 1,444, Minnesota, 758, Iowa, 552. That's not the best in there. we're that's pretty bad for us. I think we're 14th in the United States, I think is what our ranking is.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
that puts us actually pretty high on the list. Unfortunately, our death rate is 14.5. So that's going to be interesting to watch.
Our death rate is 14.5.
Yeah. So
Of
that's the number of deaths per 100,000 of your population.
mm,
So I said earlier we're high. We're actually kind of in the middle on that. What state has the fewest suicides
fewest?
per 100,000?
Oh boy. Part of me wants to say Florida because it's the sunshine state, but
You also got to remember they have a lot of old people who lose all hope of living.
it's True. Yeah.
You got a guess on what state?
I mean, is it a southern state?
No,
No.
no, New Jersey,
Jersey.
7.1.
Wow.
Florida's at 13.2, with a combined total of 3,135 deaths per year by suicide.
Wow.
So we're at 14.5. The most is Wyoming with 30.5. But again, their population is so low, right? That 182 deaths gives them a 30.5 rating.
Wow.
So you look at some of the bigger ones, Colorado,
Yeah.
where pretty much every drug is legal. They're at 21.5.
Hmm.
So they still, and it's more than 1,000, 1,302.
Hmm.
So it's not a like an insignificant number at all.
Wow.
So it's very disturbing in that regard. Yeah, because Tennessee, Arizona, they have more than us, both in number and in ratio. Iowa, higher ratio. Missouri, higher ratio and higher total. Colorado, but everywhere else, lower total but higher ratio. Again, just due to populations and that.
Right.
So check up on your loved ones this holiday, especially holidays are a big time of suicide because people are lonely, not just alone, they're lonely. They feel like they have nothing left. They see everyone else around with their families all happy and snug in a bug, as a bug in a rug. And they're like, I got nothing left to live for. We're just going to end it.
Hmm.
That's a deep, dark hole to be in. Trust me, been there. Don't want to go back ever. Statistically, though, I may go back there, but I don't want to go back there. I'll keep my, and that's where, you go once in a while. Hey, how you doing?
How are you really doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you have enough trust with that person and you think they're just giving you the platitude answer, maybe not right there because maybe they're trying to, be polite wherever you're at. Maybe it's too public a place. They don't want to talk about it.
Mm.
Be like, hey, want to chat? You want to grab, I don't know, if you're a coffee drinker, coffee, grab a soda, grab a whatever, or grab lunch, grab dinner, whatever, and chat. And maybe, hopefully, if that person trusts you and you've been a good friend, hopefully you can get somewhere and help them recover from whatever it is. Any closing thoughts, Mr. Johnson? In that case, Mr. Johnson, enjoy your metal concert in the next 2 days.